And we're live with another Sunday live stream. It is the weekly lawn and garden show here with the Grass Factor. And look who we got. We got a special guest. We've got Daniel, aka the Lawn Stripes. What's going on, Daniel?
What's going on, sir?
Kind of an interesting thing tonight. Typically, I feature professionals on the show, but let's slide a homeowner in. But this is not any ordinary homeowner. If you don't follow the Lawn Stripes on YouTube, be sure to check him out. He did a really excellent video on Ironite that I'm going to plug in the chat Ironite in the chat. That is the type of video I would get behind, where he really dives super deep into the science behind Ironite, why it works, and are there any hidden dangers in it. Did you enjoy putting that video together?
I did. I completely tumbled down the rabbit hole, as I would say, going through all of the information that I just kind of kept tumbling into from just some of the other guys that I talked to. There was a professor at the University of Nevada. I came across one of his articles. I emailed him directly. I'm like, hey, give me a little more information on this. And he gave me a huge paragraph of just link after link after link. And so I kind of went with that. And then I kind of went a little bit further and started running across other articles dating all the way back into World War II. Where they were looking into arsenic as a potential fighting back to the Nazis with chemical warfare. So that was kind of like, you know, when they started talking about arsenic and chemical warfare.
Yeah, that's it's super easy to do. I notice that a lot especially when I'm doing the whiteboard videos. I get deeper and then deeper and then deeper, and then all of a sudden I'm in agriculture, and then all of a sudden I'm completely out of the industry, and I get a little overwhelmed, but it is what it is. And I think that's kind of the fun of the research, because it takes you to such bizarre places. So Daniel, welcome to the channel. If anybody would like to learn a bit more about Daniel, he is down in the show notes. You can check him out as the Lawn Stripes. He's going to be tuning in. We'll be answering questions. For those of you that are just tuning in for your first time, I'll give you a little bit of a rundown how this works. Typically, this is a Q&A session. What I mean by that is that you ask questions and I provide answers. However, we have two of us tonight. Therefore, two of us will be providing answers. And we have moved on to that part of the show where it is roll call. So I'm going to take a minute to give a big shout out to everybody that's going on. Who's in here first is not only the man, the myth, the legend, but PPC Paul's Prime Cuts. Still reveling in that 1,000 subscriber milestone he crossed. You know what? It took me 3.5 years to get to 1,000 subscribers, maybe 3 years to get to 1,000 subscribers. And look at me now, Paul. It happens fast. As Grass Daddy said, it is the first 1,000 that is the hardest 1,000. JY Rick, how are you doing, good sir? Did you get snowed out today or what? Mr. Dogan, down there in the Frisco area of Texas. That's not San Fran. We are talking about the better Texas. Tejas, as they call it. Brandon Brian Schmidt, what's going on, good sir? Future former lawn. How are you, good man? How's everything going with your project? I know probably excited for the end of the year and excited to start back for next year. That's what I'm talking about. Gravy Lookout, Da Bears. Da Bears. Terry Finch, what's going on, man? How is your centipede doing? I say it's right about 90 night time for it. Sun 420, how are you, good sir? John Teague, another inch tonight in Knox Vegas. I can't wait. Bring it down. Let it just coat everything. I love the snow now that I'm not out pushing it all around, if you know what I'm saying. Eric Von Waddell, Don Weitzel, John Pinkerton. If you, I've made the comment last week, but I am telling you, if you are beginning to feel this unrelenting pressure of the end of the lawn care season coming down on you, and it's coming down aggressively, I'll tell you exactly what you need to do. you need to hop on over to thatonecupcakeplace.com. Put you in an overnight order of some highly, highly delectable cupcakes. Change your life. It will bring a sliver of peace and humanity back into your cabin fever-ridden life. That's what I'm talking about. Cow bid y'all over here. Shane Brady. Hey, man, I appreciate that. Enjoy your game with the Bears. Gene DeClos, Mr. Ducati, how are you, good sir? GG Turf, CD Andrews, you aren't kidding, man. We do need some more whiteboard videos. And, in fact, I think I'm just going to go ahead and just start firing those out. I've got a long week coming up, and really my plan was to start on January 1st after the new year, trying to focus more on some Carbon Earth stuff because, you know, we're getting really close to crunch time on that. So, but I've got lots of plans for the whiteboard videos because, like, one of the new herbicides I got to talk about is Sure Power and the flumioxin from SureGuard. You know what I'm saying? GG Turf, what's going on, good sir? Apicanarf, I love that name, Apicanarf. Connor Ward, what is going on, sir? Michigan, Mike Rapini, Chris, whoa! I fish all the way down from Florida, Steve Williams in Indiana. Patrick Beeman's he said, make it explode, y'all. Steak and Shake, Rob Hawkins, that's where we are. And we are coming into the first question. By the way, if you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat. We will get to them. If I skip over your question, don't worry. You can ask again. I do not get upset over things like that. Gentlemen, any use in spraying post-emergent for weeds now in Pennsylvania, or should I wait until the grass and weeds wake up? All right. Now, Daniel, before I throw you to the wolves here, tell us a little bit about where you live and what you typically are dealing with right now as far as weather's concerned. And then I may throw you to the wolves on this question.
All right. So I am in Cincinnati. So I am a cool season guy. My lawn is mostly tall fescue. There is a little bit of rye and a little bit of Midwest mix scattered throughout. A little bit of fine fescue. So right now it's about 20, 25 degrees out right now. I've been finding a little bit of snow off and on. So trying to get the last bit of leaves out of the yard. It's been a little bit difficult. I got a couple big oak trees on either side of my yard. So trying to go through and either, just bag them or rake them up, whatever. It's been a little bit difficult here lately. So kind of on hiatus until, things kind of either dry out a little bit so I can get that cleaned up, and trying to get across my backyard that I tried to renovate toward the end of September, early October. Some of that, most of it came in, but it's a little bit thinned out. Didn't get to get any mows across it, so it didn't really thicken up or anything. So looking at a little bit of a bare yard right now. So trying to stay off of it.
All right. Now, given that set of conditions you're in, as far as spraying post-emergent for weeds right now, should Michael or should Michael not be attempting to go after weeds at this current time?
I actually went out and tried spraying a little bit of the wild ivy that was out in my yard. I just had a little bit of, I think it's called a wipeout. So I had a little bit of 2,4-D dicamba and a little bit of quinclorac. So it's kind of I guess you call it a three-way. So I just kind of went out and sprayed it. If it kills it, great. I think it'll knock a little bit of it out. If not, I'll just pick it back up in the spring. The rest of it's going to be covered up by snow anyway. So.
Yep. And Michael, that would be kind of my advice to you, is that, you can, if you do want to go with something, make sure you're using something broad spectrum, and that does work well in the cold. If you're frozen, typically you're not going to get the amount of uptake needed to kill the weed. But like he used a product that contained 2,4-D and quinclorac. Quinclorac is going to have a little bit greater efficacy in cold weather than just 2,4-D alone. So what I would recommend you look for, Michael, is something that is ester-based, petroleum distillate-based. Esters are going to have a higher probability of uptake, assuming you have given soil temperatures for that herbicide to be able to move through the plant. So what does that mean? If you're above freezing in the ground, typically you can get a kill, assuming you use the right herbicide. Future former lawn noob says, Whoa, chat jumped down on me. You're going to have to bear with me just 1 second, folks. Killed some big spans of weeds over the past few months. Left me with some fairly large bare spots in the lawn. It's almost pure sand. In addition to adding RGS and other next products to the actual grass, should I be adding directly to the bare sand? What is the science behind that? Typically, I do not recommend adding fertilizer to bare sand because it's not. Now, okay, let me clarify this. If you're dealing with Bermuda grass and you bury it with sand, it's okay to fertilize the sand because as it works through, it's actually going to come into contact with that root system of the Bermuda grass for it to push top growth through. However, in your instance where you're talking about large expanses of just bare areas, putting fertilizer on bare areas isn't really doing anything to benefit the grass that's growing around it. So you want to focus on your grass areas. Now, that's not exactly what you asked. You asked about adding RGS and next products to the bare sand. Is there a benefit to that? Yes, but it's short term. So you have to think when you're taking any sort of carbon-based approach towards the soil, what holds it in the soil? Typically, that is going to be the plants and root system will help contain it. By applying it to the bare area, typically you will lose it either to atmospheric loss or to runoff. And that's just kind of the nature of it. So if it were me in your situation and you're dealing with big expanses of bare areas, I would leave it alone until you get coverage from your grass, then resume treatments on those areas. Excuse me. Billy G, what's going on? Matt Kosinski, Connor Ward. This is true about the cupcakes. That's what I'm talking about. I recommend the Boston Cream Pie at TOCP, that one cupcake place. Night time for the centipede. It did not go to bed well. That is usually the case. Kevin LCM, how are you, sir? Barry Kavanaugh. I want to learn more about Rel-Star. Okay, let's talk a little bit about Rel-Star. Interestingly, when I was at the UT Turf field day, that was one of the ones that they were talking about. Where is it? I know it's spelled there, Rel-Star herbicide. Let me pull up the label because this does have an active ingredient that I'm not super familiar with off the top of my head, have not memorized it yet. But looking at what they were doing with it was pretty interesting. I will say that it is not the end-all, be-all of weed control. That is for sure. A lot of the things they listed on the label as far as having great control, it did not have as much control as they expected. Now, Rel-Star is a combination herbicide. It contains Harrells, which is basically the heavy hitter of that, and it's combined with something else. I'm looking for a label while I'm talking about this, and I cannot find it. Eventually, I will. And the other thing to keep in mind is that one of the active ingredients in it is exceptionally hard on cool season turf. So it's labeled for applications to cool season turf. However, it did cause issues when applied to cool season turf. So again, I think this is going to be another tool in the toolbox, but I don't think it is going to be a smoking gun. I noticed on sedges in particular in the trials, it was very hit and miss. Button weed control was better at higher rates of application. However, so was the amount of damage that occurred to the actual turf grass. And I'm still struggling with this product label. Let me see if I can just do this. Active ingredient. Because there's one in it. There it is. Haloxyphene methyl. This was the kicker to fluorosilane. Hang on 1 second, and I'm going to throw this in the chat. So that was the active ingredient. And there's a couple of different products and combinations that Dow is going to be working with using that, but it wasn't enough for me to be exceptionally razzed over. I didn't get super excited about it. And then the other one is the fluorosilum. I cannot remember the trade name on fluorosilum. And I am really struggling today on these newer herbicides. See if I can find it. No, if anybody can remember what the trade name for fluorosilum was, feel free to throw it in there because I certainly can't remember right now. So anyway, that's what I have to say on that. Those were all controlled experiments through the University of Tennessee. It looked okay. It didn't look great. So that's what I'm going to say about Rel-Star. And also, do not be very careful if you're going to use it on cool season grass. It may actually lose cool season grass on the label. That was just with my conversations of professors at University of Tennessee. I use prodiamine in September. Some areas good, but some are not. We'll try Spectacle. Is it okay to apply this time of year? Need to mix any other herbicide to have better result. Mesut, okay, that's kind of vague there, so I need a little bit more information. What are you looking to do specifically with the prodiamine? I'm sure you're talking about using it as a pre-emergent. Where did it work good? Where did it not work good? If I had to guess, if you're dealing with berry areas, it probably didn't work as well as it would in thick grass. Then the other thing too is that prodiamine doesn't work as well on broadleaf weeds as it does on on grassy weeds. So that's another thing to keep in mind. You can try Spectacle. You can put it down now. Just know it's going to lack the efficacy and overall preventative power that you would have seen if you would have started with it in September when you use the prodiamine. Typically, prodiamine should give you the level of control in the fall that you're looking for, assuming you're not dealing with herbicide-resistant type weeds. One in particular that most people are looking for control when they use something like Spectacle is Poa annua. So if you apply prodiamine and you're dealing with Poa annua, chances are you're dealing with resistant species, and you will need to make that transition over to Spectacle. As far as mixing any other herbicide with it to have a better result, there are some products like through Syngenta, they have their combination guarantee where I believe it is prodiamine and monument applied at the same time. They guaranteed to be POA free, but I think it's more than just that. I think you have to do prodiamine and monument, and then followed by an application of prodiamine and Princep, which is also known as simazine. So that's mixing a post-emergent and a pre-emergent at the same time to broaden that level of control, broaden that length of time of control. And in particular, when you're using something like monument, it's sulfonyl urea. You're dealing probably with high pH soil where you are, so you'll get a longer persistence from that sulfonyl urea and basically have like an extended post-emergent effect from it. Hope that answers the question. What is the difference between verticutting and dethatching? Is one better than the other? Michigan Mike Rapini. First off, check in over here with Daniel. Daniel, tell me a little bit. Do y'all do any verticutting or dethatching up in your area?
I have not ever verticutted. I was thinking about it this past fall, but then I saw where Pete Denny was going through doing the verticutting and said it made a huge mess. So I kind of backed off on that. I didn't want to make a huge mess more than what I already do. The dethatching, I don't have a whole lot of thatch in my yard. I try to kind of keep track of it, keep it fairly thin. So I haven't gone through and really dethatched. But I think this year I might try something like a liquid dethatch and maybe spray down and see what that'll do.
That's what I'm talking about. Just real quick, I'll give kind of a general definition between the two. Typically, verticutting is done to cut the stolons of a warm season turf type that grows along the surface. So you would verticut something like Bermuda grass to cut those stolons and encourage a tighter forming knit pattern at the soil surface. Dethatching, you would typically run a little bit deeper and attempt to drive up and out the buildup of thatch that accumulates on the soil surface. I will say that this year is one of the few times I have seen thatch where I was like, wow. And it was actually during my trip to Virginia. And so we were looking at that flip-flop magnesium to calcium ratio, where there was much higher magnesium than calcium in the soil, and it had hardened and basically made that soil so impenetrable from the water and created so much resistance on that root zone that it was very, very shallow rooting. And it was the most beautiful thatch layer I think I've ever seen. So in terms of where you are, Michigan Mike, you are probably would be dealing with something like dethatching because you're not dealing with a warm season grass. So you don't have to worry about one being better than the other because it's merely just a definition thing. And also, would I recommend it? Typically not. If you're dealing with thatch issues, there's something bigger happening there. So take a look at your soil, take a look at what's going on subsurface, because if it's accumulating on the surface of your soil, there's a reason why your roots aren't pushing through it. That needs to be addressed. All right, here we go. Picture perfect bone Magnus, what's up? Jimmy! With his 12 inches of snow out there. Man, I did not see your name. Good to see you in here, sir. How much biochar is too much biochar? Will too much kill my roses? Teresa, this is great. Teresa, my favorite Snapchat buddy. This is actually a great question. So how much biochar is too much biochar? The real question is that there's not really a defined definition as far as how much is too much. And the reason why is because there's so much inconsistency between biochar products. High temperature biochar products would require much less. Low temperature biochar products would require much more. And the caveat is that you don't get quite the storage power in the soil and the coral reef effect from low temperature biochar that you do high temperature biochar. So it's a bit of a balance and a high risk, high reward type situation. So it's kind of a really vague answer, but typically the way the experiments are conducted would be like 5% by volume or 10% by volume. And you would base that based on the size of the hole that you dug or the amount of area that you actually applied it. So that's a really complicated way to say. It's really difficult to determine how much is too much and what the appropriate amount is. Okay, now the second part of this is, will too much kill my roses? No, it will not kill your roses. However, what can happen is that you will stunt temporarily the growth of the roses. It won't kill them, but it will hold on to so much of what comes from the soil that it will take a long time for it to release back out. And that's one of the advantages of when you hear someone say charging biochar. That's the advantage of it, is that you take away some of that porosity, some of that structure of it, that honeycomb-like structure of it, to decrease the amount of reactivity from it. I saw how much you applied to your roses. I don't think you're going to have any issues with it. However, the first fertilization that you do with it, and I think I recommended this to John, was go ahead and go heavy on the front end, and then you should be able to back off very, very significantly. GG Turf, are there any ill effects from long-term pre-em use? Yes. It's not necessarily a compounding effect if it has a chance to work its way out of the soil. But everyone has heard of root pruning, and root pruning is a very real thing. And that would be the long-term ill effect, is that if it does not have a chance to work out of the soil, eventually it will begin to prune roots worse and worse and worse and worse. And I'll give you an example. Even though I was working on a sand-based Bermuda grass field, they were over-applying prodiamine to the point where it would never work its way out of the soil. So you think 2 applications in the spring and then another application in the fall, all 3 of them at an over-label rate. So what happens is that nubbing effect that takes place from as just a natural side effect of the herbicide would prevent all of those new runners from tacking down into the soil, and it would die every year. They would get it grown back in partially, and everything new that grew back in died. So yes, there is. That's why we have to be careful with pre-emergence, stay within the label rate, and make sure we put more emphasis on timing than we do trying to get it down at exceptional rates or run max rates, because I can get an equal amount of efficacy applying in February as I do March or April, and that's running a rate that would be double in March and April that what I would have to put out in February. Hope that makes sense. This is a fine hoodie, Paul, and I'll tell you exactly why, because it came from not just Walker Mower, it came from my man, Chris Helms of Appalachian and Turf. That's what I'm talking about. Okay. Let me hop on up here and see what is going on. And we got grass and snow, never too much. Got me some Air 8 delivered. Excellent. Hey Matt, any whiteboards coming in the future? Yeah, Barry, I got your email now. We're gonna be doing a lot of those actually. We're gonna be doing a lot of those. Hopefully after the new year, I'm gonna have a YouTube studio set up, and that will help things. So super excited about that. There's so much hype around humic acids right now. In order, what do you think are the main reasons to spray humics? Increased root growth, increased carbon and chelation. Any other reasons? Brandon, no. So that, I mean, those three right there are the only reasons to do it. So the rate, and I believe this actually came from Ridge Runner. The rate of a humic acid application that would increase root growth is exceptionally high. I mean, I think it was like, I don't know, 100 pounds to the acre, 1,000 pounds to the acre, and that was actual of actual humic acid. We're not talking about like 1,000 pounds of 12% solution. We're talking about 1,000 pounds of humic acid. However, we were talking about 15 grams. Isn't that right, Daniel? Wasn't it that, or 18 grams per 1,000 square feet?
It was like 0.1875. I believe is what we were determining that was in. I think it was in with Carbon X, like 0.09 of sea kelp.
Yep, and we were comparing that to the study from Virginia Tech, and they use, I believe it was 15 grams of humic acid to 5 grams of sea kelp was their rate. It was a 3-to-1 ratio. And they were getting the root growth effect. And then the second part of that, when you're talking about chelation, so it's going to work on two different ways. The actual humic acid itself will have a chelation effect. And then also the fulvic acid will have a chelation effect that will allow things to be taken in through the plant tissue. One of the things I've read, I saw a video about it. I don't know if I directly buy into it, but it was that fulvic acids actually soften the tissue because of their permeability through the leaf tissue. So I don't know a whole lot about that. I definitely got a lot more reading to do on that, but I do know from particle size, it is small enough in particle size to be taken in by the root, and it can pull other things in to be taken in by the leaf, and it can pull other things in while moving into the leaf. So whether that be NPK or minors, those can be pulled in with that fulvic acid. So those would be actually the way you described it, the three main reasons to do that. University of Tennessee experiments, of course you wouldn't, because you're too busy trying to, I'm not going to go there. Never mind, Brandon, never mind. Let's see here. Hey, Matt, is it possible to OD your soil on the Biostim pack? I mean, using it year after year. Barry Kavanaugh, you probably could. I don't know. Not so much from a year-over-year perspective. However, if you're putting out massive amount after massive amount after massive amount, month over month, then I would say, yeah, it's possible. And that would really go with anything. However, if you're talking about going year over year at the suggested rates on the label, definitely not. I would have zero concern about that whatsoever. And I'll tell you, one of the instances we were looking at is, there have been instances before where people were concerned about lipid layers building up in the soil, causing localized dry spots from humic acid. And that came from one of the old studies, I think, done by Texas A&M. This was like late 90s. And the rate that was going down at that time was incredibly high. This was even greater than like that 100 or 1,000 pounds to the acre in a single application when it was causing localized dry spots. So you're pretty free to work with it as you wish, Barry. But as always, stick within the limits of the label. I have Japanese stiltgrass in the lawn and in the woods behind my house. If I only treat the yard, am I just wasting my time? Also, is there something I can use other than a claim? For Japanese stiltgrass, you can also use quinclorac. Quinclorac and a claim applied together work exceptionally well. Pilex works exceptionally well on it. And if I had to guess, I would say probably mesotrione, tenacity might work well on it too. No, you don't have to treat the woods, but it probably would be conducive to your overall strategy there to spray a little bit into it. And I'm talking about feet into it, not hundreds of feet or hundreds of yards for that matter. Let's see. How much snow over your way? I'm in southern Granville. 0.9 here. Oh, okay. That's the G. What's up, Lambert? How are you, good sir? How are you? Can I add RGS 901 Green Star or 1801 Green Punch to a quinclorac or three-wave liquid app? Have 10K front yard, want to limit apps? Yes, you can. You can do that. Understand that when you apply an herbicide with a fertilizer, the herbicide will typically be a little bit hotter because of the inclusion of the fertilizer. So fertilizers are going to make their way into that leaf really quickly, and you'll notice on most labels for herbicides it will say, to increase efficacy, use like an ammoniacal nitrogen source. The nitrogen that's going to come in any of those packs are going to have a bit of it ammoniacal. So just keep that in mind. It's going to make it a little hotter, and prepare accordingly. Watch your videos regarding your introduction to Pilex for control of Bermuda. Now that you have experience with Pilex, could you make a more comprehensive Pilex video? How, when, kickers, and mounts. Yep, I can do that. I used Biochar as mulch this year. Thank you. I think you did. I think you did fine, Teresa. I'm not concerned about it at all. Oh yeah, please make a whiteboard video of Pilex like you used to do for the other products. Okay, I can do that. What's up, Michael Poole? How are you, good sir? Thomas G. Andy, how are you? How are you? Anyone have feedback on Hydrotane ES+2 and Turf Type Tall Fescue? Daniel, have you ever tried anything like Hydrotane? Kind of one of those.
I have not. I have never messed with Hydrotane.
It is I guess simply put, it is a polymer that will hold onto moisture. So it gets wet, it will swell to a large size and hold on to that water as the soil pulls it away. So I will say this, Roy Hall, I have used it a lot, especially in non-irrigated type scenarios, and it works. There's no doubt about it. It definitely works. So if you plan on using it in Nashville, by all means, have at it. It works. Would you use Carbonex all season in warm season turf or rotate with something else? Also, is there enough RGS in Carbonex to preclude the need for separate RGS apps? Thanks. Lambert, yes and yes. For something like Bermuda grass, maybe not all season, but I would do something. So I talk about rounds because they're just coming from the pro side of things. It's habit. So yes, so we'll say like round 3 starting May. Yes, Carbonex. Yes, June Carbonex. Yes, July Carbonex. Yes, August Carbonex. Yes, September. I would recommend dropping your nitrogen rates. Right. If you're worried about fertility at that point, you don't need to be worrying about fertility from from a nitrogen source. You can worry about it from a potassium source if you're low in potassium. Remember, potassium uptake is regulated by the rate of by the plant. The plant regulates how much potassium is taken up, and it's regulated by your amount of nitrogen that you apply. So if you're applying 1.5 pounds of nitrogen, you're going to have a much more significant uptake of potassium versus if you apply a lower rate of nitrogen, you'll have a less uptake of potassium requirement. So yes, I would until that September timeframe. If you feel the need to fertilize, if you feel like you're deficient in potassium, if you have proof that you are deficient in potassium, then by all means, do something like a potassium-based fertilizer then. And as far as the amount of RGS in Carbon X, we are guaranteeing a minimum of a 3 ounce per 1,000 square foot rate in 3 pounds of Carbon X. So it's basically 1 ounce per pound. If you're applying it at 3 pounds per thousand, basically that's 0.72 pounds of N, then you will have a 1 ounce. Yes, you'll be applying 3 ounces of RGS to that 1,000 square feet. Now, here's the other thing. If you want to run a higher rate of RGS, so say you are looking to really fill in some large areas, you're looking to stimulate the crap out of growth, or you're doing some pre-stress conditioning with RGS, then absolutely you can apply on top of that. In fact, you could apply as much as 2 ounces per 1,000 square feet on top of it. That would be that 3 to 9 ounce per 1,000 rate. And you can safely apply at 9 ounces per 1,000. Got anything to add to that, Daniel?
Yeah, actually, I agree. I was actually going to, when I run Carbon X next year, I have a crap ton of humic acid left behind. I bought a 2-pound bag of TerraVita SP90. So it's 2 pounds. It makes up 4 gallons of humic concentrate, which it's 512 ounces, so 512,000 square feet. So it is a crap ton of humic acid that I have sitting around. So I use that in combination with a sea kelp, this 32-ounce bottle I get from Amazon. I'll mix that and spray it down. So we had a conversation a couple weeks ago where we're coming up with the 6% humic acid and the RGS and figuring out the 0.1875 and the 0.09 of the sea kelp, and whether or not you could or should add humic acid and sea kelp on top of that. So we determined that, yeah, go for it. It's not going to hurt anything. So I'm definitely going to do that on top of the Carbon X as well.
Yeah. And as far as staying within the normalcy of things that is out there on the market that says this is safe to do, what we came up with, and we came up with this on the Discord. And if you haven't joined the Discord, I recommend you checking it out, because it's not all the time. Mostly we talk about life and what it means to be alive, or we make fun of each other, or we're talking about who got the most snow, or some kind of silly something. However, we do have some in-depth, deep conversations about soil, weed control, building decks, mower maintenance, and all kinds of other stuff. So I'll put a link in the chat there to it. Hope that answers your question, Lambert. That was long. Go ahead.
And making fun of Connor with his Hooter shorts.
Everybody hop over to one of Connor's videos and leave some love for him.
But by the way, Connor, I have your address, and I do have a Hooters spot nearby me, so I am going to go buy a T-shirt, and I'm going to send it to you. That way, you have the whole outfit.
Shots fired! Shots fired! All right, here we go. Hang on, let me scroll back up. We jumped too far down. How much humic acid and sea kelp should I mix in my shampoo to have a thick, lush head of hair like Pete? Apap Knarf? I don't know, man. I do not know. Stick to the labels. If you double it, who knows what will happen.
Just make sure you rinse and repeat.
Yeah. I am planning on laying turf-type tall fescue sod this week in my backyard. Would you consider this as bad idea temp-wise? I'm in the Charlotte area. No, Thomas, get it down. You'll be fine, sir. Let's see here. I've tried Hydrotane Granular. Big fan for saving water. There we go. Look at that. Pest and Lawn Ginger says he saved 20% on water consumption. Do you have any info on the shipment of the Mow Around the World shirts? Still hadn't got mine. This is Michael Wassenauer. Wassenauer. Michael, you should have gotten it by now. I would reach out to Ben the Lawn Guardian. Ben the Lawn Guardian. He might be able to fill you in as to what's going on there, because I think they went out a week or two ago, something like that. I would love to see a whiteboard video with Paul's Prime Cuts co-hosting. Oh yeah, I would have to be the one. Have to be one cut. Okay. Well, we could definitely try that. What do you think? What do you think about that, Paul? When I come see you, when I come drop off all these goods to you, you think that'll work? Can we do a whiteboard video while I'm there? I think that'd be fun. Does hydrotain water retention cause any issues with intake of other applications, i.e., fur, RGS, herbicides? There is potential, future former lawn noob, but I think if you are trying to work it into a program at the rates that are recommended, no, it's probably not going to cause any issue with that. That's a great question. I really don't think so. If it does, now I could see it happening with herbicides, so I would definitely activate it with water first. Activate it with water. Once it's activated with water, I don't think it'll be an issue. If you apply it in combination, like say you got fertilizer down, you get your hydrotain down, then you water it, you may get some uptake of that fertilizer into the hydrotain, but as it releases from the hydrotain, eventually it will release into the lawn too. And as far as something like RGS, yes, the same thing could happen. Herbicides, the same thing could happen. And I think the safest way to bypass that is water it in first, let it swell, do its thing, and then make your other applications, and it won't be so reactive. On one side of my front lawn seems to dry out faster than the other. Should I apply hydrotain on one side, not the other? Yes, Terry Finch, that would be, I think you'd be fine doing that. Hey, went and got my herbicide license in Georgia and Alabama. Looking to start a small business. Should I get an LLC or a business license before I start spraying? Already have some clients set up to start in January. Definitely get an LLC and a business license. An LLC is there for your protection. And depending on the state, you will be required to have both an LLC and a business license before you can legally apply chemicals. Frame, one thing to keep in mind is that records keeping is a very, very in-depth and intense process. So make sure you check with your local Department of Agriculture. That'd be the Alabama Department of Agriculture and the Georgia Department of Agriculture. It's not as intense as other states. However, they will come down on you with a vengeance if you do make a mistake. And trust me, I know from experience, I have sprayed both in Georgia and Alabama, and we had some serious issues take place in Georgia while I was there. And plant board got involved. There's a lot of people involved, and they will go through everything that you have done, not for 1 year, but for 2 years. For 2 years, they will want to understand from the moment you crank your truck until the moment you arrive back at the end of the day, minute by minute, what you were doing. So keep that in mind. It's better to cover your arse. CYA, they say. All right, let's see.
You're seeing on the news that there's already been a couple guys that have gotten popped for spraying dicamba and not having licenses and everything. So yeah, definitely just seeing from a homeowner's perspective, stuff in the news. Yeah, keep your butt covered, man.
Yeah, and here's the other thing too. Talking about dicamba, I was having a conversation with my buddy over in Virginia, who I'll keep your name protected for the time being, but he is a consultant with one of the large chemical manufacturers right now and handles dicamba cases. And one of the things that they have discovered is that people will be spraying old formulations of dicamba under the new restrictions of the newer formulations of dicamba. So they're spraying the old herbicide technology as if it has the new herbicide technology in it, and they don't work the same. They have two different reactions based on the given temperature. So just be careful. Understand everything you're doing when you're doing it. Let's see here. I appreciate that, man. Appreciate that. Hey, Steve Willie. Happy holidays from the Mountains here. I don't even want to say what that place is. That is, you're funny, Steve. How about that? You are funny. Be sure and be nice to Pete Denny. His daddy did not give him all of that. He worked very hard for everything he has, Steve Willie. That you got him. You out trolled Pete Denny there. Had local ODAFF inspection last week. No findings. That's what I'm talking about, Ken Surratt. In fact, my Department of Agriculture called me just the other day to schedule. And so we're actually going to be talking about, now that I no longer have the spray business, we're going to be filing paperwork together to make sure my charter number is dissolved properly as I dissolve the business, so to speak. All right, everyone, that is 9:45. I know it's a little early. I usually hang on for an hour, but I have to get going because I've got a little bit more work to do tonight to get ready for tomorrow. We got a long week, lots of things happening on the carbon earth side of things. Dan the Man, thank you for joining us tonight. You got anything to add?
No. Everyone have a good night.
Shameless plug your channel.
The Lawn Stripes, check it out.
That's right. That's right. Link is in the description. Go down there, hop on over, show them some love. Again, if you haven't, future former lawn noob, I've got some stickers coming in from Sticker Mule, and we will have some mail outs as those go along. If you haven't, join us over in the Discord. Until then, everyone have a wonderful evening, and we will talk to you soon. Thank you so much for tuning in. Daniel, thank you so much for joining me on the stream tonight. Hope everybody had a good time. Y'all take it easy.